Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank you for joining me for this recorded presentation. Today, I'll be walking through the results for the 2025 Sweetgrass Resident Survey, what we learned, what we're seeing, and most importantly, what's next. So the feedback that you guys provide in a survey really plays a vital role in shaping how we operate, improve services, and plan for the future. Each slide that I go over today will kind of highlight a key insight or an area of focus that we had on the survey. I will speak briefly to what it means and how this information is being utilized. This presentation overall won't take long, but I do think, or at least I hope, you'll find the takeaways both interesting and helpful. So get started. So what was the purpose of the survey? So the purpose is pretty simple. I mean, it's to get clear, actionable feedback that we can use, that the HOA and the board can use to make better decisions overall. So resident input really helps the board and the team prioritize the community's resources, adjust their programming, and address issues before they grow. Rather than relying on assumptions or one-off conversations or individual emails, the surveys give us a broad view of what's important to the people who live here. So it's not just about opinions, about compiling and using all the data that comes in a survey to help improve overall operations, amenities, and services in a way that actually reflect the community's needs. So participation rate, we had a participation rate of 232 overall participants this year, which represents roughly 10% of the community. And to be honest, we were a little disappointed in the turnout. A stronger response would have given us a more complete picture of the resident experience and opinions here in the neighborhood. But that said, we're very grateful to those of you who did participate, and we hope to see a much broader engagement rate in the future. Really, survey feedback does matter, and the more voices that we can hear from, the better we can serve the entire community. So demographics. So we do ask some demographic questions in our survey. Particularly, we ask about how long a person has lived in Sweetgrass and their overall household size. These data points kind of help us see who we're hearing from and ensure that the responses reflect sort of a broad cross-section of the community. We don't really ask about age in our surveys because, as expected in a 55+ community, the demographic pool for age is pretty small. So there really is no need to ask that question. We know that the majority of residents that lived here are 55 or better. So we ask about length of residency, household size, not because we expect to uncover anything groundbreaking. Again, we just want to confirm that we're hearing from a good cross-section of our residents and not maybe one particular cluster of group. So as you can see on the screen here, the majority of people who took the survey lived here longer than 5 years, which is expected. You don't get too many new homeowners, so you wouldn't expect that to be a half and half split or anything. So this is about what we would expect for survey results. And then for how many people live in your household, the largest number was 2, with about 2/3 of our respondents mentioning that they had 2 people in their household. About 1/3 have a single household. And then we had a handful of people that had answered 3 live in their household. We did not have anybody choose the answer, which was 4 or more. So that is why you're not seeing that one on the screen at all. So. Okay, the next couple of slides that we'll go through talk about satisfaction ratings. These dive into satisfaction with the overall Sweetgrass experience, with the CCMC Lake House management team, and the maintenance of the common areas. And as you can see from the results, honestly, they were very positive. The vast majority of residents who lived shared positive feedback about their overall experience, and their service levels with the team. As well as with the maintenance of the common areas as well. There were very few homeowners overall that indicated they were unsatisfied. But this does not mean that we're off the hook. There were some solid suggestions regarding improvement in these areas, and those responses will be taken seriously. So. The next portion of the survey asked about resident participation and interests. So we asked about a number of different things like meeting attendance, website uses, communication preferences, and a couple of things stood out to us over time. So the first thing that we asked was about attendance at board meetings, whether in person or on YouTube. And we can see from the results, and honestly from the attendance at the meetings, that it's pretty low. This is It is concerning because honestly, this is where official HOA business is conducted. They directly impact the entire community. This is where the decisions are made. And that's decisions about budgets, contracts, policies, priorities. We would definitely encourage more residents to attend in person if they can. We realize that's not a possibility for everyone. So if you can't attend in person, then catch up by watching the recordings online, not just to stay informed, but to understand how and why certain decisions are made. We have a YouTube page where the meetings are recorded and uploaded. There is a link on our main webpage, which is mysweetgrass.net. Right on the front page, there is a link. You can just click the button, go straight to YouTube, and all of the past recorded board meetings will be on there. So again, if you don't have a chance to attend in person, we would really like you to at least jump on and see those recordings later on so that you can make sure that you're staying up to date on what official business is being conducted for the association. So participation interest as far as communications. We asked residents what they would like to see more of, and residents want to see more on upcoming events, available programs, and general community news. And that doesn't mean that the other areas aren't as important as well. Those were just the ones that had the highest response rates. So. How often do you use the association's website? So website usage is strong, which was encouraging since the website is really a key resource for staying informed. This is where we post things like meeting agendas, meeting minutes, community policies, event calendars, and more. They're all posted on our website. We're glad to see that. Looks like almost everyone is using it at least a little bit, and most people are using it quite a bit. So that's great. So which source do you rely on for community news and updates? No surprise here. The top winners in these categories would be the E-Blast, the one that comes out on Friday, the Breeze, and then the Bayou Buzz. These are the main sources of news and updates for most of our homeowners. And this really tells us where to focus announcements about broader HOA issues, helpful reminders, and key updates that might be missed otherwise. So really what we kind of expected to see here. And so we will continue to use those resources as the primary places for putting out that kind of information. So what type of lifestyle programs would you or your household members be interested in? And this was pretty balanced overall. I mean, as you can see on the screen here, that there wasn't like one big giant winner that took, 25% of the vote or anything like that. So the two ones that got the most responses were educational programs and concerts in the park. And what that tells us is that, residents are looking for a combination of both enrichment and entertainment. So we're going to continue to offer a wide variety of events. But these results and the comments that we received that went along with them will help us kind of guide where to focus the time and resources and take some of those suggestions into consideration moving forward as well. One of the more surprising results, at least for me, was when people like to attend events. So as you can see here, the vast majority of respondents indicated that they would prefer to participate in events on weekdays and not just weekdays, but also weekdays in the daytime. So there was not really what you would expect for the most turnout at an event. Typically, you would expect most people to be interested in attending, events in the evenings or on the weekends. But this is really good information for us to have. We can't commit to having every event during the day, weekday daytime hours, obviously, but it's definitely something we will keep in mind when we do event planning. I want to try to, better align with when residents are available so we can get participation rates at events up. So the next section really moved into talking more about the amenities and the parks and how often they get used. And we were definitely impressed by the response. So as you can see here on the screen, how often do you use Sweetgrass amenities in parks? A large portion of residents indicated that they use the amenities on a regular basis, which is wonderful. It really speaks to how important the species are to the community. And when we look at the next slide, which talks about, specific parks or specific amenities, the results are pretty wide on which ones are getting, regular use from the people who took part in the survey. Some of the amenities are getting consistent traffic. Others seem like they're not being utilized as much. And this kind of insight really helps evaluate where we might need to make some improvements, where we might need to promote more of our amenities more. Maybe people are not aware of them or how great they are, or even reconsider how certain spaces are being used if they're not being used for their original purpose. So As you can see from the results, though, the fitness areas, the walking trail around the lake, the pools, and the lake house meeting spaces are the most frequently used amenities in the community. So this kind of engagement really just reinforces the value of keeping the areas well maintained, investing in quality programming, and again, focusing on improvements that will keep the areas inviting and functional for everyone. All right, so one of the final questions that we asked was about participating in health and wellness offerings and whether people would be interested in, more offerings. Right now we're offering classes and, some instructional information on how to use the machines and stuff like that. But, were residents interested in more? Did they want programs like nutritional coaching, weight loss challenges, personal training, active aging seminars? And it definitely shows that there is an interest in those programs. It kind of validates the direction that we've been exploring recently and that the board is looking into, and the Health and Wellness Committee. It really gives a solid foundation for developing more targeted wellness opportunities. So thanks to everyone who volunteered or participated in this question. It was particularly important. So the next thing I want to talk about is kind of what's next. So now that we have all this data, what are we doing with it? And really, we're not letting the insights just sit on a shelf, right? They're already driving change. And we've put together kind of 10 actionable steps that have either started in process or we'll start working on soon. So the first one that we're going to be launching is like a landscape of the month info piece. We'll run this on Sweetgrass TV and our website, maybe some other places as well. We want to highlight some of the landscaping work with photos in particular, and write-ups that kind of explain, the who, what, when, where, and how. To give residents kind of a clearer picture of what's going on in the community when it comes to landscaping, when it's going to be happening, and why it's important to the community or why it's taking place at all. So the next one that we're putting together is sort of a room reservation 101 guide. We want to help put maybe some digital instruction or a video together that provides sort of easy to understand instructions for those persons that use the room reservation system, how to explain that process, common do's and don'ts, how to avoid delays with your requests, just kind of a nice tip sheet. So we're going to be piloting a monthly program, got coffee with the team, some sort of a casual drop-in style chat. It may have a different name, but you get the idea based on what I have listed here. But anyways, it'll feature basically one board member and one team member at each session. It's not considered an official meeting of any kind. There's no agenda. It's really just a place where you can drop in and, ask a question, share some ideas, or just get to know the people that work behind the scenes, your board members and your staff. We're looking at launching some quick buttons for post-event feedback. So just to kind of get some fast feedback after an event, whether the event was successful or not successful, or the educational program, you liked it or you didn't like it. And this makes it, very fast and easy. You don't have to, scan a QR code or fill out a form or anything like that. Something very quick that we can just set up as people are leaving the event to get some quick responses. So think kind of like I put on here the smiley face buttons that you see at the airport. So like when you're leaving the airport restroom and there's a smiley face, there's a green happy face and a red sad face, and you press it up or down whether the restroom was in good condition. It'll be something similar to that to make it so it's just super fast on your way out, very easy for us to get some immediate response and feedback on how that event was and whether you enjoyed it. So we want to introduce a quarterly You Asked, We Did update. So, kind of a brief, easy to read summary that highlights how resident feedback is being put into action. So, it's common that we receive resident feedback, and it's common that the board takes action on that feedback. And, a lot of times homeowners are not aware. So this will be a way for the board and the management team to provide kind of an update on, hey, these are the feedback or the suggestions that we received, and this is how we acted on them, or this is what we did in response, or yes, we approved that, and this is what went forward. So we think that will be, very informative for most of our owners. We want to revamp the Sweetgrass 101 New Resident Orientation. This is a class that we offer to new residents when they purchase their homes. I know a number of residents who live in the neighborhood have been through this orientation. And, when we talk to people, we find that a number of residents did not participate in a Sweetgrass 101. During COVID, it was not really being offered. And so there's just, a number of reasons, why the class kind of wasn't a success as much as it could have been in the past. So we want to create an all new resident orientation that kind of introduces new homeowners to Sweetgrass. It tells them about HOA operations, what resident responsibilities are, get them encouraged to get involved from the beginning. Let them know kind of what programming we have and what classes we offer and how to get to know their neighbors, and encourage them to attend events, and address some common questions that we either received from the survey or that we know that are common for new owners. We want to launch a resident spotlight in the Bayou Buzz. Just, kind of something to celebrate the residents who bring something unique. We have a lot of really interesting homeowners that live in Sweetgrass. Every time I talk to somebody, I'm just, amazed at, their history or their life experiences, or the challenges we went through, the really interesting job that they held, or maybe they just have a fun story to share. And so we'd like to start incorporating more of that into the Bayou Buzz. Maybe they've got a fun talent or a history worth sharing. So really, this is just about, kind of highlighting and showcasing the people that live in Sweetgrass and that make Sweetgrass special. So we want to kind of do something similar, but not quite as expanded for our staff members. So a lot of residents indicated in their survey, they just don't know the staff members that well. And so we want to kind of do a getting to know us spotlight, which is a sort of a feature that will highlight one team member a month, including a photo. So you can kind of get a ability to match a face to a name, a few fun facts about that person, and then really take a deeper dive at what they do. So, what is their role? What kind of responsibilities? How do they contribute? And how does that position help keep Sweetgrass running smoothly? So we believe that a number of owners will find that beneficial. And then our last two, neighborhood rep engagement. So we want to come up with a process, kind of a toolkit to help better utilize the neighborhood reps. They were very successful. The group did a wonderful job with the HOPA survey. And so we would like to sort of tap into that resource more. That's a board appointed committee, and we feel the board in particular feels like we could be using them for more like getting more people to take like this survey, for example, or for getting the word out for urgent announcements or other important updates. So we want to kind of put together an SOP on how that will look, and kind of a process on how we can use neighborhood reps to drive more resident engagement in the community. And then we're going to be doing a follow-up fitness and wellness survey. So there's been a lot of talk about fitness and wellness recently. And we're going to distribute a focus survey to gather more detailed input. We know we had a couple of survey questions on this survey that were about fitness and health and wellness, but now we want to take a bit of a deeper dive into that to get some more input for things like preferences, scheduling, wellness priorities. We want to kind of build on the feedback that we already received and take that to the next level. So this will help gather the information that the board needs to make some of the decisions on programming and schedule and overall wellness that have been hot topic items recently. So expect that to come out soon, and please, if you when you see it, make sure you take an effort to participate in that. And that pretty much wraps up our walkthrough through the results and what's coming up next. Again, I want to thank everyone who took time to participate in the survey or to watch today's results. Your feedback is always making a difference in the community. We want to continue the good momentum that we're developing here from survey results. And again, if you didn't get a chance to take the survey this last time, don't worry. Again, there'll be more opportunities. This particular survey, the annual resident survey, comes out once a year. But as I just mentioned, we're going to be doing a health and wellness survey, and there may be other opportunities for surveys, over the next few months as the board is, making some decisions about important projects and where to prioritize things. So again, though, thanks for watching and for being a part of what makes Sweetgrass such a special place to live, and I hope you enjoy your afternoon.